Hi, and welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight, joining me for a special collaboration case is friend of the show and good friend in real life, Corey Novak. Hi, Corey.
Hello.
Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I am good. So I am very excited for this episode, for this collaboration. So for those of you who have not seen the title of the show or the picture for the thumbnail, we will be discussing the murder of Dimebag Darrell. And this was actually a case recommendation that Corey did. And Corey, so typically when I get case recommendations, it's sometimes people who are from the area where a crime occurred, or they have a personal tie to the case or whatnot. For you, what made you want this case to be covered?
Just a huge fan of Pantera, and it definitely falls in your realm. So what better channel than yours?
Oh, and I promise I didn't ask him to say that. That is perfect. That is gold. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm very excited for this. This was a case that when we were doing, I didn't know as much about this case, obviously, as you do, but in doing the research for this with you, I learned quite a bit about this. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack. Again, Corey, you know this case very well, and there's a lot of angles to talk about. So before we jump into the case, just a quick hello to everybody here. Hi, Kane, James Watson, Capone, welcome, Renee, Chris James, AZ Mick. Hi, long time no see. Hope you're doing good. Let's see, Beckham. Oh gosh, hell must have froze over if Beckham's here. Welcome. Hi, Richard, Danny. This theme music makes me nervous. I mean, Paulcast made it, so there's a reason to be nervous. Yeah. Hi, Allison. Good to see you. Let's see, Judah Man. Welcome. Danny, always a pleasure. I know Dimebag was only rock and roll, but I liked it. To steal a song lyric. Okay. K-Dog, Todd. Okay, I think I got everybody. If I missed anybody, my apologies. So there is a lot to cover in this episode, as I kind of mentioned. So me and Corey will be going through the episode with you guys and through this whole, I don't even know what to call it. There's just so many ebbs and flows in this case, and you guys feel free to talk about the case kind of as we're going along, and then at the end in particular, if you guys have any comments or questions, or if you have any tie to this case as well, or comments on that, please leave it in the chat. Well, look who just came in right at the end. Hi, Paul. Paul, you mentioned that you I believe you said when I was visiting out there that you had seen was it Dimebag's brother in concert after? I can't remember, but leave it in the comments. All right.
Well, Beckham's actually had a couple drinks with the brothers, I believe. Is that not right, Beckham?
Oh God, Beckham. I try to forget about him, Corey, and you just keep bringing him back in. I don't know. But yes, that is word on the street that Mr. Beckham has a connection as well. Beckham, leave it in the chat. Yeah, Paul says I met him at a guitar store. Okay, Paul.
Sweet, man. That's awesome.
All right. Let's see. Todd is saying heard of the band. Don't really know anything about them or the case. Well, Todd, you are in the right place because we are going to fill you in on everything. Beckham says, yes, he met Dimebag. Okay. It's always interesting when we do a case or a case is covered here and somebody knows or has met either the, one of the victims or the the person who ultimately commits the crimes. It just makes it very real when people say, I knew this person. And it's just, because this is such a heartbreaking case. But all right. What is so funny, Corey? We haven't even started yet. So you can't say I mispronounced a name.
Capone's comment.
I saw that. I was choosing to ignore, but it is what it is. All right, Corey, what do you say? Let's dive on in.
Let's roll.
So Darrell Lance Abbott was born on August 20th, 1966 in Grand Prairie, Texas. His parents were Carolyn and Jerry Abbott. Darrell also had an older brother, Vinnie Paul. Carolyn and Jerry divorced in 1979. Darrell and Vinnie lived with their mother. Jerry remained in the area to be involved in the kids' lives. Darrell would frequently go to his dad's house for guitar lessons. Darrell started playing guitar when he was only 12 years old. The bands that influenced him the most were Van Halen, Kiss, Black Sabbath, and Judas Priest. His brother Vinnie also had an interest in music. Vinnie started playing drums at an early age. The two eventually started playing music together. Darrell started to enter guitar contests and ended up winning so many that he was asked to judge them rather than perform.
In 1981, Vinnie and his friends Terry Glaze, Tommy Bradford, and Donnie Hart were asked to join the band. Vinnie said yes under the condition that Darrell could also join. It was agreed and the band Pantera was formed. In 1982, when Donnie Hart left the band, there were some changes in who took over certain parts of the group. It was here where Darrell took over as lead guitarist and the stage name Dimebag Darrell began. Also in 1982, Tommy Bradford left the band. Rex Brown then joined the band in his place. Pantera's music was inspired by Van Halen, Kiss, and Judas Priest. Their style was originally glam metal. On stage, they wore spandex, makeup, and lots of hairspray. Darrell's father, Jerry, signed Pantera to his record label, Metal Magic Records. Jerry was involved with the band as their manager and producer. In 1983, Pantera released their first album, Metal Magic. Darrell was just 16 years old at the time.
16 years old releasing an album. That is incredible.
He's phenomenal.
My goodness. But yeah, when you mentioned, the spandex, makeup, lots of hairspray. Yeah, I've been into a bunch of bands that are into that. Gotta love the hairspray. So in 1984, Darrell began dating Rita Haney. They first met when they were 8 years old and they grew up in the same neighborhood together. Also in 1984, Pantera released the album Projects in the Jungle. And in 1985, they released the album I Am the Night. In 1986, Terry Glaze ended up leaving Pantera over not agreeing with the heavier sound of music that the band was leaning towards. Terry was replaced by Phil Anselmo. In 1988, the band released the album Power Metal.
Briefly, the band signed with Gold Mountain Records. Darrell said Gold Mountain wanted to change our style and make us sound like Bon Jovi, which is not quite up our alley. In 1990, the band released the album Cowboys from Hell. At this point, Pantera was on a 2-year tour, playing close to 200 shows for the album Cowboys from Hell. In 1992, the band released their album Vulgar, Display of Power. Darrell felt that Diamond Darrell no longer suited his sound or image. Darrell's appearance had changed. He now had dyed goatee, wore a razor blade pendant, cargo shorts, and sleeveless shirts. He would now adopt the stage name Dimebag Darrell. To add to this real quick, do you know why they called him Dimebag Darrell?
I do not, to be perfectly honest, and I'm sure several people in the audience don't know as well. So please inform us.
In his biography, Blacktooth Grin, it said that it's because, basically he just always carried a dime bag on him. He never wanted it, because in case he was ever caught by the cops, he never wanted to have more than that amount on him. So yeah, just interesting little tidbit for you.
That is pretty straightforward. Makes sense. Well, thank you for sharing that, Corey.
So just blow your mind.
So the band recorded all of their albums to date at Pantego Sound, which was the studio that Jerry owned. However, Jerry closed that studio to open the Aptrack studio in Nashville, Tennessee. The band would not have to travel to would now have to travel each time to Nashville to record a new album instead of being so close to home as it usually had been. The downside to this was not recording in the studio. The band would spend their downtime doing drugs in each other's hotel rooms. So in 1994, the band released the album Far Beyond Driven. Tension within the band started to show during the tour for this album. Phil suffered from chronic back pain, and he was self-medicating with alcohol, painkillers, and heroin. He traveled on his own tour bus. He would also not interact with the other band members until about 20 or 30 minutes before they went on stage to perform. When the band was recording their next album, The Great Southern Trendkill, the band recorded separately from Phil.
Phil actually recorded his vocals in Trent Reznor's recording studio in New Orleans.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, after that, in 1995, Phil released the album NOLA with his side band Down and did a 13-show tour. On May 7th, 1996, The Great Southern Trendkill was released. On July 13th, 1996, Phil overdosed from heroin after the band performed. However, he recovered and was back on stage 2 nights later performing the band's next show. When the band was recording their next album, Reinventing the Steel, it was a constant battle with Phil. Then he said in an interview after the album's release, it was like pulling teeth to get Anselmo down to the studio. He didn't like any of the material, and it always just like this headbutting contest. Darrell and Vinny's mother, Carolyn, was diagnosed with lung cancer and ended up passing away shortly after on September 12, 1999.
In March 2000, the band released the album Reinventing the Steel. In September 2001, Pantera was in Ireland. They were set to begin a European tour on September 11th. However, due to the 9/11 attacks, the tour was canceled. The band decided to take a short break, and some members were focusing on their own individual projects. In March 2002, Down released its second record, Down 2, A Bustle in Your Hedgerow, which featured Rex on bass. Phil also released the album Use Once and Destroy with another one of his bands, Superjoint Ritual. After the tour for this album, Phil and Superjoint Ritual recorded another album called A Lethal Dose of American Hatred.
Those are both really good albums. In 2003, Rex told Darrell that he would be taking a break from Pantera to focus on his health and his family. Phil also was not returning to Pantera. Darrell and Vinny decided to form a new band. They recruited vocalist Patrick Lockman and bassist Bob Kaha. The name of the band originally was Newfound Power, but they later decided on Damage Plan. Instead, Newfound Power was the name of the group's first album, which released on February 10th, 2004. In 2004, Damage Plan was on their Devastation Across the Nation tour. The band planned on recording a follow-up album after the tour, but
on December 8th, 2004, Damage Plan was playing a concert at the Alrosa Villa in Columbus, Ohio. One of the concert attendees was Nathan Miles Gale. Who was Nathan Gale? He was born on September 11th, 1979 in Lansing, Illinois. He was the youngest of 3 boys. His parents divorced early on, and his father left the family. Now the Gales moved to Ohio. In 5th grade, school administrators noticed mental health issues and put Nathan in special ed classes for a learning disability. Nathan acted out and was given some disciplinary complaints. By the time he was in 10th grade, his mother was now going through her second divorce. Nathan began getting into more trouble, missing 33 days of school. Nathan and his mother would move to Marysville, Ohio. He attended the Ohio High Point Career Center, a vocational school where he completed training as an electrician. He went on to serve in the United States Marine Corps as an auto mechanic with the 2nd Marine Division. However, he did not serve his full term as he only served from February 2002 until November 2003. Nathan had minor run-ins with police and was not able to hold down a job. So he frequently bounced from job to job, working in a variety of professions like a mechanic, a landscaper, and a pavement cleaner. In his spare time, he played offensive guard for the Lima Thunder, not sure how that's pronounced, a local semi-pro football team. Nathan was known to frequent the Bear's Den tattoo parlor. This studio was located actually across from where Nathan's apartment was. Autumn Bender, who was an employee there, stated that she sometimes would have to ask him to leave because he would stare at clients and make them uncomfortable.
As we mentioned, Nathan was one of the concert attendees at the Dimebag concert on December 8th, 2004 at the Alrosa Villa in Columbus, Ohio. Club manager Rick Catella and other concert goers noticed Nathan loitering in the parking lot during the opening acts. Volume Dealer and 12 Gauge were the bands opening for Dimebag that night. He was approached by club staff and asked why he was outside. He responded by saying, "I don't want to see no shitty local bands. I'm going to wait for Dimebag. When it was time for Dimebag to start, Nathan scaled a 6-foot wooden fence to enter the club. As soon as Dimebag started performing the opening song, Breathing New Life, off the album Newfound Power, Nathan quickly made his way through the 400 other concert attendees. He was noticed by security guards who followed after him thinking he was a fan going to stage dive. Before security could reach him, Nathan stormed the stage, pulled out his Beretta, fired 3 shots in the back of Dimebag's head, and then 1 shot into his hand. Vinnie Paul, Darrell's brother, was also playing on stage. Just witnessed his brother's murder.
My God. My God.
Did you imagine that? Man.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I can see how how security would first think that, oh, this is just a fan going to stage dive, because that's common, or that would be common at that type of concert. But ultimately what happened is, there are no words.
Even the fans weren't quite sure what was going on when it initially happened. They kind of thought it was, part of the act. You know what I mean? They just thought like some kind of gimmick, but unfortunately, no, it wasn't at all. It wasn't at all.
So there's a lot of chat in the, going on in the chat here about me mispronouncing. Okay. My apologies. So security and audience members, they rushed the stage immediately after realizing what was going on. And Nathan actually started to shoot at them. A concert attendee, Nathan Bray, immediately tried to help Dimebag by administering CPR. Bray stopped, turned around to look at Nathan, put both arms out, palms up, his gesture asking, "What the fuck, dude?" That is when Nathan shot Bray in the chest, killing him. Mindy Reese, a registered nurse who was attending the concert, rushed forward. She did chest compressions for 15 to 20 minutes. She kept saying, "Dimebag, come on, please stay with me." Columbus police officer James D. Neidmeyer quickly responded to the shooting at the Alrosa Villa. By this point, John "Cat" Brooks, the band drum technician, was not only shot by Nathan, but taken hostage. Cat had tried to wrestle Nathan to the ground, but Nathan was able to get Cat into a headlock. Cat was able to move, and in that moment, Officer Neidmeyer shot Nathan Gale once in the face with a 12 gauge shotgun. This killed Nathan Gale immediately.
By the time paramedics arrived, Dimebag, who had sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the head, would be pronounced dead at the scene. He was only 38 years old. In the span of 3 minutes, Nathan Gale killed 4 people and injured 2. Nathan Bray, who was attending the concert, was shot and killed. Aaron Hawk, who worked at the club venue, was shot and killed. Jeff Mayhem Thompson was a member of the band security and was shot and killed. Chris Paluska, who was the band's tour manager, was shot but survived. John "Cat" Brooks, the band's drum technician, was shot and survived. I believe he got paralyzed by that, did he not?
I believe so.
I believe so. Yeah.
I believe so. So there's so many questions, one including why did this shooting even happen? Since Nathan Gale was killed at the scene, police were really never able to interview him to ask why he killed Dimebag Darrell and then turned the gun on concert attendees. There are reports from some witnesses that he shouted something about the breakup of Pantera before he started shooting. Everyone knew him to be a huge fan of Pantera. Mark Brake, a former friend of Nathan's, stated, quote, "When they broke up, I think he felt some kind of personal connection, like he felt left out or betrayed. This kid listened to their albums every day. He was obsessed with Pantera," end quote. Mark said that he and others began to distance themselves from Nathan about 8 months before the murders. This was due to Nathan talking about killing others. Quote, "He told me once that God told him to kill Marilyn Manson," end quote. Nathan would also make statements that Pantera was stealing their song lyrics from him.
Mary Clark, Nathan's mother, stated in an interview, "Nothing I say about him is going to erase what happened in the end. In those few minutes, I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sorry for those people who were killed, but I lost a son too." Mary also says she bought the 9mm semi-automatic handgun used in the shooting for her son because she was proud of his military service. When Nathan came home from the Marines, he was diagnosed as schizophrenic and had medication for this diagnosis. Mary did not know whether he took his medication.
Those who knew him stated that he often showed signs of mental instability. His autopsy showed no trace of drugs in his system. The night of the shooting was a tragic and senseless act of violence that so many, not just the music community, are still affected by to this day.
Vinnie Paul stated on reflecting on the night of the concert, "So we were all in good mood and we had a full house that night and went up on the deck, and right before we went on, Don was warming up his hand and putting his lip gloss on. The last thing I ever said to him was Van Halen. And he gives me a 5 and says, Van fucking Halen. That was our code word for letting it all hang out and having a good time. That's the last thing he ever said to me, man. It was insane." Darrell's public memorial was attended by thousands of fans. Some of the celebrities who attended were Eddie Van Halen, Zakk Wylde, Corey Taylor, Jerry Cantrell, and Dino Cazares. Eddie Van Halen spoke at Dimebag's funeral. He shared a story that a few months before the murder, Dimebag called him because he found out that Eddie's Charvel guitars were going to produce a limited edition series of guitars bearing Van Halen's trademark, taped striping. Dimebag asked if he could purchase one before they became available. Eddie agreed, and so the next time he saw Dimebag, he would have one of the guitars with him and would stripe it in his presence. However, obviously this never occurred because Dimebag was murdered. So, at the funeral, Eddie brought out the black and yellow tape striped guitar seen on the back cover of Van Halen 2, which was known as the Bumblebee guitar, which Dimebag had mentioned that it was his favorite guitar of Eddie's, and he laid it in Dimebag's casket and buried him with it. The casket itself was a Kiss casket donated by Gene Simmons. Dimebag Darrell is buried at Moore Memorial Garden Cemetery in Arlington, Texas.
That is unbelievable that so many prominent big names in the music industry really came forward for this. Corey, that's absolutely incredible. Kind of just goes to show the influence he had.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Vinnie Paul, Dimebag's brother, would end up purchasing a home in Las Vegas, Nevada. What he said was, quote, "Texas will always be my home, but me and my brother used to go to Vegas all the time to escape. When my brother was taken from us, there were so many I'm sorries. In Dallas, that never stopped. It always was a reminder of what happened when it comes up. People don't understand that. They mean well, but I could be out somewhere watching a show, having a good time, and I'll hear, 'Hey, sorry about your brother, man.' And I'm right back to thinking about that night and him. It was hard to deal with, so I started going to Vegas for a few weeks at a time, and I didn't hear that as much. Then I found out you could buy houses for nothing because the housing market crashed. So I got a really nice house, and now I really enjoy spending time in both places, end quote. The concert culture of fans coming up on stage has changed since this incident. Anthrax guitarist Scott Ian stated, quote, after something like that happens to one of your best friends, how could you ever feel safe? Anywhere, ever. The few times that kids have made it up onto the stage during our show, no matter how friendly the scenario, the first thing I think is, dude, you should not be on this fucking stage. You should know better. To me, everything changed after Dime was killed. The stage became off limits for everyone but musicians. I don't give a fuck how much fun you're having. Stay the fuck off the stage. End quote.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. It could just be a fan wanting to have a great time, but all it takes is one incident to change everything. And you don't know. You don't know.
No,
I don't know.
absolutely.
What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, it specifically coming from him, I feel like it's kind of strange because he kind of, back in his time growing up in the stages, that was like the thing to do was to stage dive and mosh and stuff like that. Now, granted, of course, everything like that did change after that night, but for him to be kind of speaking so vehemently about it, like, what are you doing? Like, he kind of came up in that area, and I don't know, it just feels kind of disingenuous of him, of all people, to say. Nothing against Scott Ian, and Dimebag was often mentioned as the fifth member of Anthrax. But, like I said, it all changed that night. The whole, people letting fans on stage. Here at local shows, we still do it. It also just depends on, the size of the band, like where they are in their career. You know what I mean? Like,
Makes sense.
Like a local band, you might do it. But, if Lamb of God comes to town, you're not getting on that stage. As a matter of fact, Randy Bly, with the lead singer of Lamb of God, he accidentally killed a fan that was on stage because the guy jumped up on stage. Randy didn't know what this guy was capable of. He didn't know what he was doing up there. This was in the Czech Republic. He pushes him off the stage. He breaks his neck on the way down, and kills him. And just to say, kind of to comment on Randy Bly's character, this obviously devastated him, and he went and visited with the boy's family, and they broke bread up and everything, and I thought that's pretty awesome on his part. And like he had to do time and prison for a little bit for it, and it's just the whole thing because of this incident.
Yeah.
If this incident would have ever happened, that probably wouldn't have happened. But like you said,
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, things changed after this night.
Yeah. So sadly, on June 22nd, 2018, Vinny passed away from, and I'm probably going to butcher this, dilated cardiomyopathy and coronary artery diseases. He was only 54 years old. He is buried alongside Darrell and their mother, Carolyn. And Jerry Abbott passed away on April 2nd, 2024. He was 81 years old.
That was a little recent.
Yeah.
Since Darrell's death, the legacy continues to live on. On May 17th, 2007, he was posthumously inducted into Hollywood's Rock Walk. In 2011, he was ranked number 92 on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. It's a load of shit. In 2015, he was ranked number 5 on the Gibson's list of top 10 metal guitarists of all time. Also in 2015, he was ranked as the most influential metal guitarist of the past 25 years by VH1. In 2018, he was ranked number 19 on Louder's list of the 50 greatest guitarists of all time.
Since 2010, an annual tribute concert called Dime Bash has been held. Each year, it had numerous high-profile performers. The concert proceeds were also donated to charity. The last Dime Bash concert was held in January 2020, just before the pandemic closed everything down. It featured 70 plus music artists coming to the stage to honor Dimebag and his brother Vinnie Paul with Pantera. So one of the notes in regards to this, Corey, there were so many like lists that he was, inducted to and ranked. Was there any of them in particular that stands out to you, or any that you think maybe he should have been put on but was not?
I just feel like 92, ranked number 92 out of 100. That's just completely asinine to me.
That's fair.
But
okay.
Other than that, yeah, everything else is pretty fair, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the kind of theories when I was, researching this case for anybody who has seen, I know I covered the assassination of John Lennon by Mark David Chapman. So the date of the killings of John Lennon and Dimebag Darrell was the same day, obviously different years, but it coordinated on the same day. And, of course, doing the research, there was some intranet blogs where people are like, oh, there's a connection to it, but there really didn't seem to be one when all was said and done on that specific day. But in regards to kind of rounding out the case, you had something you'd mentioned from one of the books that you wanted to reference.
Yeah. Okay. So this is right here. This book, very good. It goes into detail about the night. And
what's the name of the book, and who's the author?
The name of the book is called Vulgar Display of Power. A Vulgar Display of Power, Courage and Carnage at the Alrosa Villa. And it's very detailed about that night and about the victims, all the victims involved. And it does a great job at highlighting, the lives of the other victims we tragically lost that night, along with the detailing some more stuff about the murderer, Nathan Gale. But I just wanted to read the final thoughts of on this book real quick, because I just feel like it's very important. So, all right, here we go. What happened at the Armosa Villa on that fateful night of December 8th, 2004 was extraordinary. It was extraordinary in the sense that, like the events of September 11th, 2001, what occurred was a calculated, unprecedented attack on innocent people. It wasn't foreseeable. It wasn't predictable. It wasn't expected. Nor could a simple security enhancement have prevented it. What happened came from nowhere, and no one other than the perpetrator contributed to it. It was truly an extraordinary crime. However, more extraordinary were the acts of heroism, courage, and selflessness demonstrated by so many during the event and in its aftermath. Jeff Thompson instinctively acted when he perceived a threat to his friend Dimebag. He knowingly placed himself in extreme peril as he struggled to disarm the assailant. His actions saved the lives of Vinnie Paul Abbott and guitar tech John Graham. From the audience, Nathan Bray watched with shock and horror as a man he idolized was gunned down before his eyes. His determination and kind heart propelled him to climb on the stage to try to save Dimebag Darrell Abbott. When he realized that his hero was gone, he immediately began to give aid and comfort to Jeff Thompson, a man he had never met and whose name he did not know. Only one can hope that Nate's final moments were filled with solace, knowing his son would be raised with love and goodness. Yeah, Nate had a newborn child at home. On the side stage, Alrosa Villa security member and professional roadie Aaron Hawk agonized as he watched the horror unfold in front of him. Cautiously, carefully, he analyzed the situation. When presented with what he believed was an opportunity to save the hostage and disarm the predator, he heroically acted, yet tragically, Aaron died. Courage and heroism wasn't isolated to those who paid the ultimate price at Alrosa Villas. And one can't help but be in awe of the bravery and selflessness shown by so many members of the Columbus Police Department on that night, including Officer James Niggemeyer. But yeah, I'll stop there. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that, each of the victims that were killed, died in the name of doing something heroic. And I just feel like we should definitely point out their sacrifices to try to help one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And if anybody is interested in kind of reading more about what Corey was just reading or that book in general, we do have it in the drop down, the information. And there was a few books that we did link down here. So if anybody's interested in checking them out, that is one of them. So
this book is amazing. This book is great. The author, I didn't say the name earlier, but his name is on here. It's Chris A. I don't know his last name. All he gives you is the first letter of his last name. But yeah, Chris A. But you can find, like she said, the link is in the description, and you can find this on Amazon, eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, and you'll just discover so much.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that, because this is, as much information as we, that we have and that we went over with you guys. There's so much more to it. We could have done like a 5-hour show on this, in the end.
If Danny if Danny had it my way, this would be like a 2-hour show. There's so much that we both wanted to mention, but gotta stick with the plan.
I run a tight ship, Corey. Come on.
She runs a tight ship.
Oh no, Corey's come to know that. He's come to know how organized I am with this stuff. But his, Dimebag's career alone, we could have done a whole episode on. It's just what he accomplished, and especially the talent that he had so early on. It was just absolutely incredible. For me, one of the things that stuck out was, he was entering these guitar contests from a young age, and then was ultimately winning them all and being told, no, don't run in them. You're winning it all. Judge for us. That was incredible. Incredible.
And not only that, but he could write these masterpiece guitar solos and did it with such ease. I play guitar myself, and for me to write a solo that's a quarter of as good as that, it takes me days to come up and think of this stuff. It would, with the stories I've heard, it would just take him minutes, to just throw something out and it'd just be impeccable. The guy was what's that word everybody says? When you're describing somebody that is very, 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 very good at something.
Like a prodigy?
Yeah, prodigy, man. That's what he was. He's a prodigy. Most definitely. Without a doubt.
Yeah. One of the things when I was going through, I wasn't aware of the, these tribute concerts, Dime Bash, and I was looking through photos of previous ones and, any videos I could find online and on YouTube, and they were incredible. The names, you can go on the website and see a list of the artists that were at them. And it was just absolutely incredible. The huge names in music that to this day, or before the pandemic hit, I should say, would come together to do this for him. It just blows my mind that he had such an impact on the music industry,
A lot of that had more to do with not just, his amazing guitar playing abilities, but his personality and his charm, Nobody really can ever say a bad thing about him. Everybody just has, great stories to share. And Loudwire, the website Loudwire, they have a whole segment on YouTube, a playlist, and it's Dime memorial videos where they interview artists to share a Dime story. I think they did this. I a few years ago, but it's still on there, and I recommend everybody check that out.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, is there, and kind of wrapping this case up, one of the things with the research for this is there seems to be a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the band or the shooting itself, or, anything within that. Is there any kind of more popular or common misconceptions that you've seen throughout the years that you wanted to touch upon, or and kind of either say, this, there is this misconception, we don't know whether it's true or not, or hey, this is put out there and that's bullshit and here's why. Anything you can think of, not to put you on the spot, Corey.
No, yeah, no, you're fine. So, I think a misconception is that this sick individual, Nathan Gale, acted upon a interview that was released just a few days prior to this shooting, and it was an interview with Phil, the singer, and Metal Hammer, which was a English music magazine. And the interview, which by the way, you can read it in here. It's pretty grotesque, and he says some very just kind of stuff that's kind of beyond reproach. Just very gross stuff about both the Abbott brothers. And it was, like I said, it was released 7 days prior to the murder. And so a lot of people are on the belief that, well, that's why Nathan Gale did that, because he was, because Phil gave him the orders. He's a sick individual. And so in his head, he's like, aye, Captain. But I just want to say I don't believe that, because this was actually not the first attack attempt from Nathan Gale to Dimebag Darrell. Damage Plan had previously gone to Ohio a few months prior to this, and Nathan Gale attempted to attack him on stage, but fortunately he was actually gathered up and taken off the stage before anything bad happened. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on that whole situation, because I know it's always been a recurring topic of discussion amongst Pantera fans.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. No, it absolutely adds another layer. Gosh, I can't speak tonight. Another layer to this. It's just, it seems, and I know it's always easy in hindsight, 2020, the psychology person in me, looking back and seeing the warning signs were there. But it seems like more so in this case, the warning signs were really there. And people, instead of acting upon it, they just seemed to distance themselves. The friends that he had were just distancing themselves instead of, and it's tough. It's tough because we see this time and time again, but this was one of those cases where it was just very apparent that, again, the warning signs were there, and could this have been prevented? And again, where Nathan Gale was shot and killed right on the scene, there are no ways to ask those questions as to why.
What a courageous shot by Officer Niggermeyer of that night. As we know, he had somebody hostage, and all he had was his 12-gauge shotgun. And when you shoot, it's not like a single bullet; it's a huge mag. You'd have to be pretty accurate with that shotgun to avoid hitting his hostage. Mm-hmm. And luckily. He was able to take down the assailant without hurting the hostage. Now, this really messed the officer up. He ended up retiring with PTSD not too long after this incident.
Yeah. I did go kind of down a little bit of that rabbit hole with him. And yeah, this really, really affected him. And he, very... it's because in the end he took a life, but he took a life to save so many others after an attack that just took the lives of other people. And there's, like you said, having PTSD from this, there's no way around it.
And
was just
he's gone
marvelous.
on the record to kind of try to put a spotlight on it, because I feel like he felt that just the higher ups, if you will, just don't put enough of like research behind it, and I guess give enough solace with PTSD. So I know he does a lot to help. He does a lot to help with prior military veterans and just anybody cope with PTSD. So he does a lot of great work. He definitely does.
Good for him.
And another person that does a lot of great work is I have his book. Oh, is his book Destroying Monsters? Is that in the description?
Let me check. There were several books that I did link in here, but let me just check for sure. I can tell you that right now. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up on my phone because it's quicker. We have Black Truth Grin and Official Truth 101 Proof. So this might be a different one.
Okay. Well, I'll put it in the comments after the show. But anyways, Official Truth. This is the autobiography of Rex Brown. This is another great book if you want to have more insight into the band and the kind of the inner turmoil that was happening within the band before they broke up. It's very obvious that a major rift that happened between the band was, like, there's no denying it was due to Phil's heroin use. He was full blown addict, and that just causes a person not to be themselves and to be reclusive. Like, it's just, there's no denying that was a major factor in what would become the rift between them. And John Joseph, he was the lead singer of the Cro-Mags, and he sang on the album Age of Core, which is a quintessential hardcore, New York hardcore album. Quintessential, it's a very important album in the hardcore scene. Well, now he's he's a life coach, an author, and he just released a book called Destroying Monsters, where he basically details and discusses and helps people overcome addiction and cope with trauma and mental illness. So I recommend everybody check out that book. It definitely can help out a lot. I also recommend you check out his autobiography. Actually, it's called Evolution of a Cro-Magnon. That is the best, bar none, the best autobiography I've ever read. And I trust me, I read a lot of them. Best. And it's
That's
actually
a big claim.
Oh yeah, trust me. And it's the only audiobook I recommend because he reads it himself, and that's the only audiobook I care to read or listen to. I like to read. I like to get the creativity juices flowing with the text. But yeah, that's the only one I recommend. Listen to that audiobook because you will be on the edge of your seat the whole time. And the stuff this guy's saying, you're just like, there's no way this is possible, but it is. And it's great. Evolution of a Cro-Magnon, Destroying Monsters. Go check them out.
Okay, like you said, so once we finish the show, definitely put them in the comments of the video and pin them so that if people do want to go back and check it out, they can easily do so. This is also, as you know, a channel where there's a lot of book recommendations. So this is definitely a great episode for that. If you're into this, as we've talked about this band, this case, and everything else that Corey's just been talking about, there's quite a few options if that was something you did want to learn more about.
Yeah.
And
Blacktooth Grin. Sorry to cut you off, but Blacktooth Grin. That's Dimebag Darrell's autobiography. Check that one out. Also, that's really good. And Beckham, to answer your question, this is my favorite Stephen King book. Yes, sir.
Gotta love Beckham asking questions that have nothing to do with like the case itself. It's so ridiculous. Why is Beckham even here? Oh man, just kidding. So yeah, that was, I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things that I know when we were messaging about this case, there was, and I could see kind of as an outsider looking in, at this whole case and the bands and whatnot, the whole Phil versus Dimebag, like you said, the split in the band, the rift, and there just seems to be such a one side or another thing, and I'm like, I don't know. I can see both sides. And there was one video, I'm sure you've seen it, that I found on YouTube that Phil had done, and it was after Dimebag was murdered. And he seemed like very
Yeah, it's a
sincere.
very sad video.
Yeah. Yeah. But he was, I mean, also within that video saying, like, I don't give a fuck if, if people think this or that, like, I lost my friend, so to speak. But yeah, whether there was a rift or not in the end, it just,
there's no doubt that if Dom was still alive, they would have reunited years ago. They would have. There was so much love between those guys, and unfortunately, with obviously, like I said earlier, Phil was a huge heroin addict, and the Abbotts drink a whole lot, and it can be hard to keep up, So I like you said, you kind of see both sides, and they're just there they go, they're off, and too much, when you're constantly touring with each other, always beside each other, they're you just kind of get sick of each other, but there was so much love for them, like that's why the after Dimebag died, that's why the hate between Vinnie Paul that he had for Phil and Selma was so real. The hate was so large because the love was once so large.
Yeah.
I read in a magazine one time when Phil and Dime got taken to jail. There was a party and Dime was getting kind of beat up by the cops, and Phil charged down there to defend his friend, and they ended up taking them both to jail that night. Phil's willing to put his ass on the line to help his friend. That's the kind of guy that he truly is, and so I know there's without a shadow of a doubt that they would have reunited and mended fences. Just would have taken some time, but unfortunately, we never got that.
Yeah, they never got that. So there have been other kind of celebrity cases where they have been murdered by either a fan or what was once a fan and now turned stalker, or maybe it was a random attack or what. I mean, there's so many instances that we could go down. This is, I have to say, the only one where for me, when I Google Dimebag Darrell, a picture of his killer doesn't show up anywhere. It, like, you scroll through images, there's not a single one. I'm sure you have, scroll like later, maybe it comes up, but there wasn't one. As opposed to when you look up John Lennon, Mark David Chapman, his picture's right there. When you look up Gianni Versace, David Cunanan, his picture's right there. It wasn't like that with Dimebag Darrell when you look it up. And I thought that was very noteworthy. And I'm actually very happy for that, because Nathan Gale should not have, an infamy for himself because of, this connection. He shouldn't get that fame for this.
Absolutely not. I feel like that's just kind of, we like you said, when you pull up John Lennon, you get the picture of, Mark David Chapman along with it. I just feel like we've learned not to do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to even mention them, but like when a mass shooting occurs, like I feel like they do their best to filter the name of that person to keep them from getting any kind of recognition. And I just feel like we definitely developed in a positive direction as far as media is concerned in that kind of way. I wanted to ask you, in this book, since we're talking about the Nathan Gale, he had a mother that loved him pretty much, and that's expressed pretty well in this book right here. Like I said, go check this book out if you're interested in any of this, go check this out. But he had a mother that loved him a lot. How do you feel about her situation, and her, like, how she feels about it all? Because she didn't ask for any of this. She never knew her son was going to do this.
Nathan Gale's mom.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit torn, and here's why. I feel that on the one hand, I think, him being discharged from the military early, as well as it being very apparent, especially as time was going on, as closer to the date of the murder, at the venue, that Nathan was becoming kind of more and more erratic, if you will. His friends were starting to distance themselves from him. He was making a lot of comments about killing people, or making these kind of more grandiose comments of, well, Pantera, they're stealing their lyrics are being stolen from me. Even the quote of that God told him to kill Marilyn Manson. So having those types of kind of very public statements and in erraticness, again, even the tattoo parlor across the street from where he was, the owner would have to keep kicking him out because he would go and make people uncomfortable. So I question, did his mother, see that and maybe not understand the depths of what was happening? Or, as sometimes you do with family and loved ones, you maybe rationalize and make, come up with, I hate to say an excuse, because that's a poor choice of words, but something that, oh, well, maybe he's doing this because of this, and just kind of rationalizing it with something where it's giving him the benefit of the doubt. It's giving her son the benefit of the doubt. So I kind of go back and forth between, how could she not know things were moving? His mental illness was rapidly declining. But then again, a mother's love for her son, I don't know. I get very torn on it. But I will say, I know I'm going long story short answering your question. I will say, I mentioned to you, I really deep dived into Nathan Gale doing this because I wanted to learn as much as I could about him. Again, he was shot and killed at the scene, so we'll never get those answers. But from what I was kind of researching in regards to mental diagnoses and comments he was making to friends and family and just his whole upbringing, I really got the sense that if not for this attack, he would have still snapped at some point and attacked somebody or some group of people. I don't see another way around it. Whether it would have been in the same category of a musician, or maybe a form of a politician, or whatnot, or maybe someone that he feels has wronged him in some way.
I have a perfect example for you. The creators of Beavis and Butthead. Did you know that he used to, when he was younger, he said the same exact thing that he said about Pantera for Beavis and Butthead? He even told a judge in court that Beavis and Butthead was still in his thoughts. He had a very long history of run-ins with the law. Usually just dumb stuff, like mostly drugs, and just acting out. Nothing real violent. You know what I mean? Just being stupid, being a dumb kid, like smoking weed and on school property, just like an idiot. I felt like his mom, like after he joined the Marines, I felt like his mom, because like I said, he grew up with a bunch of just juvenile run-ins with the law. Like I said, just kind of minor stuff, stupid stuff, drug abuse. But I felt like when he joined the Marines, his mom felt like he had come a long way with his mental health, but clearly it was quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Her buying him that pistol, it's really silly, like clearly he has a history of mental illness. But at the same
Agreed.
time, part of me, you know, just it's like, man, that she had that was like, I think that was like her only son, and you know, she cared for him, and you know, for him to do that, it's just got to be just very sad, you know, just devastating.
And I'm glad you make that point right there, because so his mother is a victim as well. She is a victim.
Yeah.
You know,
No doubt.
she lost a son. At the end of the day, yes, I'm not in any way condoning what Chris Gale did. It was horrible and horrific and never should have happened. But, you know, his family or his network of people, they are victims in this as well. You know, it doesn't just stop with the person, you know, even, you know, the other people from the concert who were murdered, you know, their whole family, their whole friends, their whole network, they are all victims in this too, because they have also lost a loved one. So a crime like this, it doesn't stop with, I'll just use the blanket statement, 4 people murdered from the event or 5 people murdered from the event. There's so many more victims in this because of family, friends, coworkers, communities, you know, everybody who was tied to those people, they all lost somebody. So Nathan Gale's mother, she is a victim in this as well. It's horrible, but I feel like when you're on that side of it, it's not always looked upon that way.
It's not. And speaking of like how the victims' family members are also, you know, victims in their own way, there's letters once again in this book from the victims' family members that's very tear-jerking at the end there. Yeah.
Well, you have sold me. I will be getting that book. There's just seems like so many more intimate details about this case that we can't cover in the time scope of this episode that I personally really want to look into and
it's a rather quick read with lots of photographs.
Easy enough.
A lot of great information.
Great. Yeah. That is going into my Amazon cart, I assure you. So if anybody, as we start to wrap this episode up, if anybody who, you know, that has been, watching this in the chat, if you guys have any last minute, you know, comments or questions for us before we head out, that would be great. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna throw a little bit of trivia at you while we're waiting for that. Favorite Pantera album? 1, 2, 3, go.
Great Southern Trendkill.
Okay,
without a shot
right off the bat.
Of a doubt. That's the most colorful album.
Okay.
Yeah. What about yours? Hey, what's yours?
No, don't. I don't have a favorite one. And that's my honest answer. Don't hate me for it.
What's your favorite Monkees album?
Oh, every single one. Hey now, let's K-Dog made the comment, and then you guys answered. There was a band that did a show in New Jersey that the club caught on fire with pyrotechnics. Several people killed. Yeah, that was Great White. Yeah, you guys were talking about.
I think it was like 100 people killed, wasn't it? There was a lot of people that were killed in that fire.
Yeah, I don't remember offhand. I remember seeing the video when it happened. That was, and people didn't think, from what I recall, people thought it was part of the show. Kind of like you said with this, you know, someone jumped. Oh, you hear that all the time.
The band The Who, there was a huge tragic accident at one of their shows, and I think up to 400 people might have died, mostly from being trampled on.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's devastating.
Oh, man. All right. So I think we are all caught up with comments, and it was in Providence at Lupo Standing. Thank you. Thank you, Chris James. Oh, man. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining.
Speaking of Chris James, does he know him? Didn't he meet Dimebag?
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned at the end of the Danny After Dark episode last, the True Crime and Chill, you mentioned in the chat your kind of connection to this case. So before we end, yeah, please type that in the chat if you will. Yeah.
Share it with us, Chris James.
Yes, please. I would love to hear your connection. I know it's more authentic than Mr. Beckham's just running into them, with getting drinks and whatnot. I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm so mean.
They had the same stomping grounds, There's probably a lot more in common between old Beckham and old Dimebag and Vinnie Paul than we've realized.
Man. So Chris says, yes, I worked with Pantera a long time and then Damage Plan. Wow.
Man, heck yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
That's what you call vulgar.
Hey, now, let's not age shame. It's almost hard to talk about. He was a great dude.
Vulgar, that's a Pantera reference.
Okay, well then my bad. Yeah. You know what, Chris James, I'm going to give that a star. Yeah, that is well said.
Nice.
But then he also adds, I hated Phil with a passion, though. One of those sides. All right.
Was it before what happened?
Good question.
Done that or
good?
And how do you feel about this Pantera reunion, Chris James?
Dime and Vinny were just great guys. All I can say. I'll give that one a star too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Chris James here.
I'd be interested to hear his thoughts on it. If you want my thoughts, I'm kind of in the middle of it. Part of me feels like those songs need to be heard live, but then it also kind of hits me kind of sour when people are like, I just saw Pantera live. Not to play elitist or anything, but I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's not them without the Abbotts. I'm sorry. But, people are enjoying the shows, and to me, that's what matters. So I think they would have played together again. Oh, most definitely, man. Like, without a doubt.
He says, oh, you mean without Dime and Vinny? No, I would hate that.
That's what they're doing now, Chris James. Did you know that? They're so it's right now there's a reunion. It's Phil and Rex, and then it's Zach Wilde and Paul something or another. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his last name, but he used to drummer for Anthrax. That's the current Pantera lineup.
So Corey, would you not go see them, or would you if they come to your area?
I saw. I kind of liked it when Phil H. and Selma and the Illegals toured with Slayer, and it was called Philip H. and Selma and the Illegals play Pantera. That's how they advertised it, and to me that was cool. And the whole band just did a fantastic job. But them kind of masquerading it as Pantera, it kind of does rub me wrong a little bit. But to each their own. If they came, so I mean, I kind of did see a rendition of that of the Pantera reunion. But if like this actual Pantera reunion came to town, yeah, why not? I'd go see it. Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't buy a shirt though.
Chris says, I heard about it but didn't care. It's Phil trying to have some glory. Dime was the heart and soul of Pantera, and everyone felt it and knew it, and it bugged Phil no end.
Exactly, Chris James. And it's kind of ironic how Pantera's last album, Reinventing the Steel, the last recorded song was I'll Cast a Shadow. and that kind of foretold what would happen with Dime. When I die, I'll cast a shadow. Those were the lyrics, and that's exactly what Dimebag did.
Sam Smith, you are always coming in like at the last minute. So Sam is saying about 7 people did.
It was only 7 people. I thought it was like 400.
Sam Smith always comes in with facts. So you can argue it with him, but nonetheless he comes in with facts.
Sorry.
Oh man. 7. So thank you everybody for joining us for this episode, and thank you Corey so much for this case suggestion and for doing this collab. This was so much. It was a lot of I don't want to say fun because but it was great working with you in doing this case. And everybody, for those of you who don't know, this was Corey's first YouTube kind of covering a case like this. So I think you did wonderful. I think you did amazing. And thank you for coming on. And you are welcome back, hun. I will give you the floor. If there's, hey, maybe that book, maybe we might do a book review.
Thanks for having me. And
you are so welcome, hun.
And,
so if anybody who is catching this after this episode is aired and you have any questions or comments about the case or, Pantera or Dimebag Darrell, leave a comment in the description and we will get back to you, especially if it's one that I don't know the answer. I'll get Corey to answer it for you.
Hey, Chris James, it was nice talking to you about that, and have a good one. Have a good one, y'all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. And remember, until next time, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us. Bye, everyone.